Hello, everybody, and welcome to Trilio Insights on True Story FM. I'm Pete Wright. Virtual machines have long provided IT teams with important flexibility and isolation for running workloads. But as container adoption accelerates, how can organizations integrate their VM environments into modern infrastructure? This week on the show, I have the distinct pleasure to explore KubeVirt with our own Kevin Jackson. Our hope is that you'll come away with a 360-degree view of KubeVirt and how it might fit into your container strategy. The future of virtualization is coming into focus this week on Trilio Insights. Kevin Jackson, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Pete?
I'm very good. I've been studying up on this conversation. I've been studying up because I think it is fascinating. It's a fascinating exploration of technology. When we talk about, integrating VMs into our Kubernetes environments, I hope we help some people today. I hope we help some people see the light.
Oh, I hope so too. I'm excited about this, emerging technology.
Yes, it's fascinating. Can you let's explain first of all, what is KubeVirt and how does it work?
So KubeVirt is basically virtual machine management through the ways and wonderful ways of managing stuff through in Kubernetes. So just how you can manage applications that are based on containers. It's the natural world of Kubernetes. Red Hat got a little bit curious. Looking back at the history around about 2016, they got curious and wondering whether or not can we manage virtual machines in the same way as we manage any other Kubernetes thing, and they did.
There's a certain recursiveness that delights me about that exploration. Like, it is a snake eating its tail in some respects, it feels like, or nesting dolls.
It is. I mean, it gets. I mean, look, we're encroaching into territory where we know that virtual machines are kind of like the bedrock of like the infrastructure. Obviously, you've got bare metal, and then on top of that, to make best use of bare metal, you're going to carve the resources out using virtual machines, and that typically is what runs things like Kubernetes. Mm-hmm. People do run bare metal Kubernetes, but most would run it in a virtual environment and virtual machines. And so you've got this world of Kubernetes, and then suddenly come along, and adds this extra feature called KubeVirt, or in the Red Hat world, OpenShift Virt. And suddenly you got the ability to run virtual machines. So if you think about like the thing, it's like turtles all the way down.
Yes, exactly.
And then you can run Kubernetes inside of those virtual machines, and then I don't know where it's going to stop.
Insofar as we've talked about the beautiful metaphors for how this thing works, give us some concrete use cases. Why would I want to consider this if I'm an infrastructure manager? How's it going to help me?
So, I mean, the appeal is around Kubernetes. So, I mean, the right off the bat, the world we're in is a Kubernetes focused world. So, what's getting all the action is obviously, like I said before, applications based on containers. So I guess there's almost a barrier to entry in the world of Kubernetes. For people who are born into that world, that barrier didn't even exist. But for others who, the vast majority of others, let's be really honest, that still run virtualization, but know that there's a world out there which is highly orchestratable, and get all the richness and all the good features of Kubernetes. They want to be able to have that cookie and eat it as well. And so, so they're left with a couple of choices of like, well, how do I get there? I've got my applications running in virtual machines. I've got this alien world of Kubernetes and containers.
Suddenly it's a legacy question, right?
Yeah. So in terms of like, so one thing off the bat is like, is running virtual machines in Kubernetes to take advantage of the Kubernetes ecosystem, is running virtual machines in Kubernetes a nice little stepping stone to that. And I think it's a very valid stepping stone, because I think not everything should run in a container. I mean, I don't know how controversial that is to our listeners, but I just don't think that everything should be containerized. You know, virtual machines exist. You know, there's far more virtual machines than containers. Or,
Right.
you know, maybe, I don't know, given the fact that containers are like the tiniest slices, you know, of a computer, maybe, you know, it all equalizes.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you know, the world does not all run containers. You know, there's big databases out there. There's big systems that run perfectly well and are suitable
In a VM.
for VMs. But I would like to use the orchestration features. I'd like to use the capabilities of Kubernetes. And suddenly I've got this little bit of consistency for when I do get to the containerized world. Or if I'm already there, I've got this consistency of managing virtual machines and my containers.
So it sounds very much like the benefits that you're getting out of this structure are resiliency and scalability, right? Like you have a system that can bend under pressure, even though you're running VMs right alongside all your containers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's so yeah. In terms of like features, yeah. I mean, you get the framework of Kubernetes, you know, and that comes with, you know, things like scalability. However, I mean, I guess there's a world of there's a world of like, it's not all the panacea. You know, we get to the stage where yes, we can run virtual machines inside of Kubernetes, but then we have to have the conversation around the fact that, like, you know, we've discussed or, you know, certainly touched on the why, and you get the added benefits through a Kubernetes ecosystem of running virtual machines on there. But virtual machines also run equally as well on the platforms that they were designed to run on.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, so
just because we can do a thing does not necessarily mean we should.
No, exactly. I mean, we would not be, you know, able to have these kind of conversations if we would just come on and say, oh yeah, you should just run everything now under KubeVirt. If you've got a virtual machine that's running on, I don't know, you've got your hypervisor, you've got a KVM hypervisor, I don't know, you've got KubeVirt, you've got, I don't know, OpenStack, whatever. You know, you might be thinking like why do I have to change? You know, our listeners do need to understand that, like, you don't have to do these things. You've got choice. You've got to migrate for the right reasons. But I think the right reasons is to have consistency of your future estate. This consistency of managing both containers and virtual machines. But, you know, again, you don't have to run everything in a container. And suddenly you've got this nice little landscape, which, you know, gives you the benefits of a virtual machine and all the good stuff that virtual machine runs, and all the good stuff about, you know, scaling out your containers in a very Kubernetes auto scaling, auto healing kind of way.
Yeah, and the auto deployments, and like we touched on that last time with Rodolfo, like there are clearly benefits for sure, but, you know, Spider-Man's dilemma: with great power comes great responsibility. So let's talk a little bit about KubeVirt in industry. What are our other options?
Yeah. So yeah. Obviously, if we look at the landscape that this now operates in, you know, obviously there's a drive of, it's, you know, you want to go there with your virtual machines because you want to run Kubernetes. Let's be really honest. I think in terms of like the choices of where things can go, if you think about the interesting landscape that's come about recently with the Broadcom VMware acquisition, it's caused a little bit of noise in the industry. You can't avoid, you know, reading the news articles to see, you know, yet another kind of like grievance as to, you know, price hikes and all that normal stuff that comes with acquisition. So people are obviously a little bit touchy about, you know, where can I run my VMware workloads, for example. So in that kind of context, where can people, you know, what are the choices? So, you know, KubeVirt obviously operates in a world next to OpenStack. It obviously, you know, runs next to the world of VMware itself anyway. And any of the hypervisors like Nutanix, you know, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of options for people to run virtual machines. It's worth noting the fact that KubeVirt is relatively mature in comparison. I mean, it's KVM based. like a lot of hypervisors that are out there. A lot of the OpenStack-based distributions are based on KVM. All the hypervisors exist. But it is relatively immature. Even the fact that it's been in kind of like curiosity mode in development for quite a while. In fact, looking at the history of KubeVirt, it was, I'd say, curiosity got the better of some Red Hatters in 2016. It became like a project of CNCF in 2019. And then it got a level of maturity being an incubated project in 2022, 2023, 22, somewhere around that kind of time, I think. And then we got version 1.0 last year. You contrast that to, say, OpenStack, again, which is arguably in this context a management of a hypervisor. It's not a hypervisor itself. That's been around for 14 years. It's there is a level of sanity, into this conversation. It's not the panacea, but the acceleration of adoption or the acceleration of a certain interest, certainly what we've seen, is quite immense. We in fact, last year we were having conversations, early last year, we were having conversations around, say, OpenShift virtualization, which sparked us to do development of being able to back up OpenShift virtual machines, using our Trilio for Kubernetes, workflow. And so, that was back then. And I think now we're getting, 2 or 3 conversations a week around KubeVirt-based environments.
Question on this discussion around why not use OpenStack? How much of this is a discussion around managing your budget of the unknown, right? Budget of uncertainty in deployments.
Yeah, I mean, I think because of the relative immaturity of KubeVirt versus the maturity of OpenStack, I think it just depends which angle you're coming at. If you're a Kubernetes person and you know that there's a desire to enhance the environment with this operator called KubeVirt, so this extra additional capability, then that angle is different to somebody who is an infrastructure person. An infrastructure person will probably think that the Kubernetes environment is complex to manage. But from a Kubernetes angle, a Kubernetes person, they might think the OpenStack, environment is bloated and complex. So depending on your entry, I think you get 2 different answers.
When you look at the landscape overall, what major players are really investing in this? Who's really pushing? Who are our role model infrastructure players who are pushing KubeVirt?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's some. The biggest by far, but not even the elephant in the room is Red Hat.
Yeah,
they developed the thing. They have it as part of a certified operator and a certified offering for their OpenShift environments. We certainly see a hell of a lot of them in our conversations, and quite rightly so. In the upstream world, when it was donated to the CNCF Foundation, out in the big bad world of just upstream KubeVirt, you've got service providers that are using this. You've got people like a Spectro Cloud. You've got people like a few others, maybe Platform 9. People who enhance they have offerings of Kubernetes and then enhance this with virtualization. But they can hide a lot of the complexity through their own user interfaces as well, so they can get a seamless experience of, say, running virtual machines. But the kind of back end and what they know is like a Kubernetes based world, so they can offer both, to their customers. So, but yeah, by far is easily a Red Hat.
Red Hat, sure. Okay, so you dropped the word sanity earlier, and now there is an elephant in the room we have to talk about. What are the factors we should be considering if we have this opportunity to potentially discover if KubeVirt is right for us? Why would you move?
Yeah. So, I mean, why? I mean, hey, why wouldn't you? So,
See, well, and that's really the thing, because we're all susceptible to new shiny, right? Like there are great new infrastructure plays we can make to sort of extend our operation. Let's seriously look at it.
yeah, I think if you are comfortable Kubernetes, let's talk about like the I guess the requirements. I think it's an easier way
Sure.
of looking at that. So I think if you're comfortable with Kubernetes and you have an additional requirement for running virtual machines for whatever reason, your applications just don't work well in containers, or you're managing something which you're to bring the sanity word in there. It's like, why am I managing like this VMware environment or an OpenStack environment when, you know what, I've got 90% of my staff know Kubernetes. And so like in that kind of like panacea, it's like a good place to go. We're on KubeVirt 1.0. So that's, with a ton of solid features. It's still an incubating project. It still needs to get to that maturity to progress to the next stage. But even if you look at the CNCF or the KubeVirt pages, you will see the fact that like the incubating projects are heavily used in the industry. They just need a little bit more time to mature and just to develop. But it's under active development.
Yeah.
But the real elephant in the room is like, well, I mean, will it do everything that I need it to do? So if you have got an OpenStack environment and you're thinking, oh, do you know what? I can migrate all my virtual machines to run in KubeVirt. You have to question why you've got OpenStack in the first place and what that's providing you. OpenStack provides you with a ton of capabilities that currently, can't, or don't exist in the KubeVirt world, as it stands today. Again, it's still a maturing project. It will allow you to run your virtual machines. You can attach your disk. You can attach your networks. You can do all your virtual machine stuff. But there's a reason why these other things exist. And so you have to be grown up and adult to kind of like have the justification of moving your workloads into and you've got to have basically all the right reasons. We know the world of IT, people move stuff for the wrong reasons. There's a wave, there's a bubble happening. There's just because like somebody says this is the way you should do things. And unfortunately, people like me get caught up in that kind of hype.
I didn't mean to call you out with the new shiny comment earlier, but maybe that's where we all are, right?
Cult scene. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just addressing that. But yeah, I mean, the point I'm making, look, it's really awesome technology. And honestly, I think for a lot of use cases that go beyond just the basics, you will get to a place which you will be very happy managing Kubernetes-based virtual machines. But I think as I say, the entry point is the fact that you're a Kubernetes person. You're a Kubernetes, administrator that's comfortable with the networking elements and don't see Kubernetes as complicated. From the outside in, Kubernetes looks complicated. But to a Kubernetes person looking at OpenStack or VMware or stuff like that, honestly, they're alien environments, in that context. So
it's a walk in the park, yeah. All right, so Kevin, tell us what is Trilio doing in the KubeVirt space?
Yep. So yeah, good question. So as I say, quite a while ago, we were first to market with an early release of being able to back up OpenShift virtualization VMs using Trilio for Kubernetes, so the certified operator for OpenShift. So that was a request for a large environment going back way back now. What year are we in? Anyway, it feels like a long time ago. Right. We've obviously matured since then. Kubernetes and KubeVirt itself has matured. OpenShift itself has matured. So for us, from a Trilio point of view, we treat a Trilio virtual machine pretty much like anything else in Kubernetes. And then that's kind of like a little bit of the magic. You're not having to switch gears to think, oh no, I've got a virtual machine, so I now need to go and put my virtual machine hat on to understand how to back up this virtual machine. To us, and in fact, the construct of like a pod, which is like the outside element, and then this container inside. That you've got a pod, and then you've got a virtual machine inside. So from a It makes logical sense that Trilio just treats this as just a resource that sits inside a pod, and it's got extra resources like a persistent volume. It's got a resource like a network. So for us, it was very easy to fit into our workflow. And that was like, so we had a good ground in basics, I say a long time ago. And where we're up to now, you can do things like fast DR failover. So we've got a feature called continuous restore. Works extremely well for containers with storage attached. With virtual machines, they immediately have storage attached, right? I mean, that's the difference between a container. It's not just a process that runs in memory, optionally has disk. You can't get away from the fact that a virtual machine, has a disk. So
needs resources, right?
Yeah, immediately Trilio is perfect for backing this up. There's a disk there. We grab the disk, the information, all the Kubernetes, metadata around this. But we extended our continuous restore functionality to virtual machines as well. So you've got an environment, say in data center 1, you run all your virtual machines. You've got an environment, data center 2, and we're able to back up those virtual machines. But not only can we back up those virtual machines, we can almost, I like to phrase it as pre-stage those virtual machines in a different data center. And so you've got this kind of almost site recovery manager, to coin a phrase from VMware, kind of like a world where you've got a scenario that if your OpenShift cluster or Kubernetes cluster has failed in data center 1, your virtual machines are ready to go, including the disks, are already on the right storage in the right data center for you to fast failover. So that was new for the latest releases that we're on. So we're on version 4.0 of Trilio for Kubernetes now, and that's baked into that just out the box. You get that free if you as an additional feature for all our customers.
Yeah, right. They're thrown in. You're just throwing it in.
Absolutely, we love it.
So generous. So yeah. Well, it's fascinating, and I think if we were going to leave folks with any sort of homework, where would you suggest they go to learn more?
Well, there's a few websites. So KubeVirt.io is probably the main ones. We've got some blogs either in the pipeline or about to go on Trilio.io around backing up and managing virtual machines. We've got some videos on YouTube. So if you look at the Trilio channel, you'll find that we show like OpenShift integration. We show the console. You can back up your virtual machines and recover your virtual machines directly from the OpenShift console, for example. So they're good resources to go to.
All right, we will just swipe up in your show notes, everybody. We'll put direct links to those resources in the show notes so you can catch them there. Thanks for the tour, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for having me on again. And I always like chatting to you, and hope our listeners are, happy and are now ready to explore Kubernetes with KubeVirt.
Likewise, water's warm. We certainly appreciate all of you downloading and listening to this show. Thanks for your time and your attention. Again, we encourage you to head over to those show notes, click those links, learn more about all the resources we've talked about on the show today. On behalf of Kevin Jackson, I'm Pete Wright. We'll catch up with you next time on Trilio Insights.